Good morning, everyone. I hope you're all well. So, I'm having a sort of Friday teaching because a few people are coming across things in their practice, and I wanted to provide some guidance to help people. So why don't we take a moment to sort of connect and focus? And I will do the same. And today we're going to be working more with understanding of various concepts. So we're going to be working with our minds. Because on the path, it is very helpful to understand the framework. So when we come across certain things, we kind of know what to do. And as we connect deeper, we also achieve a higher knowing that transcends the mind, that provides guidance and direction from just kind of a knowing what to do. But it's not based on something subconscious or habitual, but it's sort of a higher mind guidance, or more of a divine guidance of just a felt sense of what's going on. So I'm going to try to present some teachings that will help people. Yes. Okay, so let's sort of align and relax. And for people who are going through things, this is why it's important to take refuge in God. Because when we go through difficult times, we can call on Him. We're not alone. And even if someone hasn't done that sort of full refuge in God, there's no time like the present. And sometimes when things are a little challenging or scary, or we feel really stuck, or we feel a lot of fear or paranoia, we feel a little manicky, that opens a door where we may be more likely to make that move towards God and asking for help. And He is there. He is there waiting for us to make that link with Him. Doesn't matter what happened in the past. Doesn't matter where you've been in the past. Right now, our present and the decisions we make in the present can create a new path and lead us in different directions going forward in our future. So we can make decisions now when things can be more difficult, and that refuge is available. And we can pray for that connection to sustain us and to guide us and to heal us and to help things come about according to His will, according to Yahweh's will, Hashem's will, Adonai's will, El Shaddai's will, Elohim's will, Abba's will, all of which are names of the one God. We don't walk alone. We have guidance from people such as myself, and We have guidance from our knowledge. We have guidance from the Tanakh. We have guidance from readings we might do on various topics. And ultimately, we have the wisdom and guidance from God that we're able to tap into as we connect in ever deeper ways with His Wi-Fi. So right now, we're taking a moment to pause, to allow us to have that connection. And for those who are going through challenging times, it's an opportunity to pray for God to come to them, to be with them, and to help them, and to pray that what you're about to listen to can be of assistance in a positive way, and to help you move through this period in your life in a healthy way, so you can come out on the other side in a better way, having cleared and transcended in a healthy, controlled manner to a bigger, brighter tomorrow when you're in ever closer union with God. You see, there's a prayer there. And since this is a deistic teaching, this is a deistic channel, we believe in God. So the prayer and our desire is to always connect in deeper ways. And then we have the benefits of that, the graces, the blessings, ever deeper guidance and blessings and graces, which make us stronger. And then we have less necessary to depend on ourselves. We feel more carried. And then we calm down and we trust the process. Doesn't mean we don't do things on our end. Doesn't mean it's okay to become passive. But at the same time, we don't shoulder the burden, and we feel that there's a divine direction. And we can relax and trust with that. And therefore we go through different periods. It's not as stressful and challenging. Whereas before, when we didn't have these practices, these techniques, this knowledge, this connection with God, that same period could be 1,000,000 times more stressful. We may not have been able to go through it at all, or not in such a great way, or not such in a quick way or healthy way. Do you understand? Yes? So let's take a moment and make sure you're comfortable. Since this is going to be more of an intellectual teaching, you could listen in front of your shrine so you could have that connection. But if it's not comfortable enough to be seated in a way to listen, then in a chair. But when I listened through many of my teachers, I was on a meditation pillow for a couple hours. So if you could prop your pillow higher so you can sit cross-legged in a more comfortable position in front of your shrine, so you maintain that sort of connection, or seated at a desk. But put your hands together and just simply connect. And if you feel called to say the name of God, to do that connection, then do so. And make a prayer from your heart on what you would like. Yes, that's good. All right, so let's do that now. So I like presenting my teachings in a certain order, what I think to be a logical order of progression. And I've touched upon some of these concepts here and there. And some of these concepts I've touched upon, but not done a full teaching to put it in a sort of context with other aspects of things that I've taught. And some of the things I'm going to touch upon are things that I consciously decided not to touch upon previously, nor did I intend to touch upon them in the immediate future. But sometimes when people go through things, I need to provide guidance. But that doesn't mean I'm necessarily going to give a full teaching on these things. Because I don't think it's time. Not fully sure if I ever will give a full teaching on some of these topics. It takes time to work and to create a basis of ability and practice before a teacher feels comfortable on touching certain esoteric topics, which are very powerful, but also come with certain dangers, which we'll touch upon a little bit later. So I'm going to give these teaching based on sort of a first aid kit and touch on certain topics. But I would ask people not to go about and researching them further and focus on some of the practices I've been teaching and work on more of the path element and not go into things which I don't think are necessary to go into. Just having some of the knowledge I'm going to provide and provided in the past is enough. Because we are concerned about the journey and not so much, and we have the tools. And I'm trying to keep it focused on a certain pathway and not get pulled off into other ways of thinking or focusing on things which naturally will just resolve themselves without having to go into certain methods or technologies which rely more on yourself and less with God. And can be an entire path on themselves. But I don't wish to focus on that. And that's why I was hesitant of speaking about such things. But when people are having certain experiences, they've kind of realizing certain things. And it's helpful to have that understanding as what's going on an energetic level. So there's less fear, and one understands how to deal and manage certain situations. So I hope that provides a context. I've been thinking through what to say for the last 24 hours. And I decided to be very careful and skillful with my words and try to keep us a little constrained and focused. So there are two principal issues that are going on with some of my students. One issue, they've come across blocks that they can't get past. They're stuck somewhere. And some of it comes with imagery of a certain sort of context or something, and they can't seem to move beyond a certain energetic place. Second issue, sort of the polar opposite. They've pushed through, or they just naturally slip through those blocks, and too much energy is flowing, and they have hit paranoia, certain levels of mania, and a feel of lack of control. This sometimes happens on the spiritual path when one breaks through certain blocks, but also if one pushes too hard using techniques that I do not teach, techniques of other traditions, or just pushing, you like a dam, you can break a dam and have a very strong energy flow that is challenging to lessen. Everything should happen in its own time. There's a right amount of effort, skillful amount of effort, but going too far, too fast, too hard can cause issues, serious issues, but fixable. Okay, remember it's fixable, so be calm. For those going through it, relax. Being calm and relaxed will help resolve what's going on. So I've presented a framework of teachings over this last year and a half. Only the most recent have been recorded. That provides for a gradual path, quick path, but in a way that's done safely and gradually, which normally would not provide a quick bursts of energy where one sort of feels a little scared. You may feel things shift, you may feel things move quickly, a burden quickly lightens. These are normal, but we try to avoid sudden blow-throughs. They can be challenging, and especially if you don't have a teacher present, you don't know how to go through it. And modern doctors really don't understand it, but they are modern medicines that help, but they are also techniques. So I try to keep the water sort of lukewarm. We progress great, But we don't go into things that might push it too hard. And that's why I don't go into postures too much, certain yogas, certain breathings, certain all sorts of little things, because I don't feel to. And because there's issues there. And it provides time and guidance. And, I don't know, people are at different levels. And I've always counseled on going slow, taking your time, and it's okay to take breaks. Some people might think they're on a time frame, and they could be. But we have to be mindful. Is it I have only time in my schedule to do this in the next 4 days? Or realize this is a process and it's not about me and my schedule. Because there's a very real pathway, there's a very real road that people are going through, and it takes time to get there. It takes a certain amount of time to get to London or Paris. You can't say I need to get there in 6 hours when the plane ride takes 12 or 18 or 10 hours. And you have to be mindful of that process and have to somehow incorporate time in your day or shift schedules to make it happen where you can safely go through the journey. Trying to compress it and in the certain amount of time you have available can cause serious issues. Getting there safely, look, maybe you could strap yourself to the back of a missile and get to Paris in an hour. That doesn't mean you're going to get there in one piece. You need to use the 747 or whatever the plane is nowadays. I just dated myself. And that takes the time to get there safely, correctly, appropriately. That also doesn't mean that you take small regional airplanes and you make 5 layovers and changing planes or spend 2 days in Ohio or wherever. You want to get there quickly. So do you see the balance? There are also certain prayers, mantras of God that use several names that are helpful in these situations that I will also speak about. So, 2 things. People having blocks, and then people really flowing too fast, and there's really no blocks or any sort of normal or constrained or regular flow. So I will address each in turn, and I've made notes. So this is not a teaching I want to go into now. And it's something I've been studying, and I don't know if I ever will teach about this. But I just wanted to highlight something to put things into a small context on probably a much bigger, complex topic. We've discussed the tree of life, the Jewish tree of life. But the Kabbalah is primarily concerned with metaphysical and spiritual insights, not so much how the body goes about energetically on achieving these spiritual levels. It focuses more on divine encounters with divine aspects of ourselves and God and the spiritual ascent, and doesn't so much detail the physical or energetic process to go there. Now, there are certain teachings that's a little more indifferent, and I wanted to kind of say traditionally that's there. I'm doing research on the topic, and I believe there is a certain amount of energy and movement that's built into it. I'm not going to discuss that now. But I wanted to touch about it because I've been speaking about the tree of life. So this is what I'm going to be discussing, is not so much incorporated in these teachings. They haven't been so much focused on that, though it's not fully 100% what I'm saying either. I'm touching about the topics lightly, and I'm not going to get into the nuance and the specifics and the intricate aspects of any comparison. Okay? I'm going to touch about things I've learned that I have found to work and be true in myself. And so I'm going to be teaching about the energetic pathways of the body, because I think it's going to help people understand what they're going through and how to address it from a practical point of view. I'm all about the path. How to get from A to B. There are other teachers that are more about the theology and concepts, and great. But every concept I teach is based and thought out on how relevant is it to connect with God and to address issues that come up along the way. And so when I hear what people are going through, these are all energetic processes. Energetic blocks or energetic movement of energy. Thoughts of paranoia, fear, rambling thoughts, talking quickly, not able to sit down. That is all manifestations of energy. Energy moving really fast. Being stuck in a way of thinking, being stuck that one is stuck in certain thinking or energies or thoughts or images in one's mind, that's a block of energy. Okay? So let's think about our bodies so I could help give a little bit of an anatomy lesson that's a little bit further than what we consider or think of in the modern world. So, I've spoken about our bodies before. So we have our skin. We have fluids such as water and blood. They go through our vessels, right? It's linked to the heart that pushes it through our body. The body, the water, the blood contains life through cells, oxygen, right? Everything that has oxygen has chi in it, the air that animates us, the essence of life. It has an energy of life. The freshness of the air, if you breathe in, has a vitality to it. That's an energy. We have nerves that went through our whole body. That's literally a conduit of energy. And we know that from modern science. That energy is produced by the heart. EKG. We're literally seeing the energetic manifestations to the beating of the heart. Pumps the blood, but it also sends the energy through the nerves. Yes? Our brains are through synapses, our thinking. Their forms, I don't want to overspeak, I'm not sure, but I believe neuroscientists will call those nerves as well. I think they're nerve endings, but they're on the frequency of the transmission of energy, whatever word they want to use for that. The electrical impulses of our thinking. Which also can be quantified or seen through electrodes around the brain, and you can see those energetic patterns. So our body functions on energy. If you think about it, calcium in our bones, calcium is a transporter of energy. There are certain minerals that energy does not go through very well. Calcium is not one of those. It very much works well with energy. So then we have our spinal column that goes up from the base of our body, the perineum, between the legs, going up the spinal column, up and through our brains. Right? That's just human anatomy. What's the spinal column? Nerves. And from the spinal column, it branches out, I believe, to all the different nerve endings of the body. Should have looked at a diagram, but I haven't. Right? It sort of animates us. So we have freeways of energy in our body. Right? It's the freeway of energy, of which the heart is the center because it creates it. So if one wants to go one level below and forget about the nerves, we could just focus on the energetic flow that occurs. So we could focus on the freeway, or we can focus on the cars that are on the freeway, which follow the path of the freeway. So I'm asking us to focus on the cars, the energy that's moving along these pathways. You see? It's one level deeper than we're used to thinking about. See, it makes logical sense, right? These pathways can be blocked energetically. They pool in certain areas, which in certain philosophies and traditions are called chakras. We don't over-focus on them in our tradition because there's other ways of dealing with that. But nevertheless, when one has issues with blockages, they're in certain ways of thinking, and they're associated with certain chakras. It's a way of thinking and conceiving of things which help provide solutions. Do you see? You don't get caught up so much in the way of that philosophy or way of thinking or that medical energetic knowledge, but at the same time, it's helpful to understand. If one has a too quick flow of mania and paranoia, the energy is flowing too fast from the first chakra between the legs to the top of the head. So what happens when there's too much energy too fast going through the brain? The brain spins. We can get so caught up in our thoughts, they become paranoid, scattered. We speak too fast, we can't sleep, we move. We talk about a lot of things that seem a little crazy because we're spinning out of control, what we call mania, being manic. It's a heightened flow of energy. And then there's medications that calm the mind, calm the body, and we slow down the flow to something more normal. So do you see how it's important to think of energy in that way? In that way, it deepens our understanding of what's going on with us. So this is a framework which I have found valid through my own experience. So I know how to work with that paradigm. And it's helpful along the path because the flow in our bodies very much mirror energetic and religious and spiritual awakening. So the Kether in the Kabbalah tree is really the crown chakra and above, which is divinity. Do you see? But I'm not going to get too much into the parallels, but it's higher thinking, it's higher wisdom mind, it's inherently compassionate. Because we've worked through our heart area, which we say, I feel it in my heart. My heart's open to you. So even we have an acknowledgement that in our heart area is love and compassion. We don't say my navel has opened to you. My love through my navel area has opened to you. Another chakra lower down, we say it's our heart. We don't say my mind's open to you. If we do, we say our thinking and we're open to learning. More on the mind. But it's not necessarily the chakra, because the mind isn't the chakra area. I feel I can trust you. If we are of a higher and more clear vibration, that's come from the wisdom, the third eye it's called. But if we're too much in our minds, that comes from more of a mind, subconscious, intuitive aspect that is more mind-based. Does that make sense? So when we have blocks and we're stuck in a way of thinking or a certain vibration that might be dense or PTSD-based, trauma-based, it has associated thoughts and memories to it. Lower vibration, right? Somebody beating somebody, right? That's dense. It's heavy. We say, oh, that's so heavy. Oh, that was a lot, right? That could be equated to a lower frequency. Make sense? That's lower chakras. That could cause for chakra blocks of fear of your life. Abuse is very first, second chakra levels. And it keeps it from going up and you can't clear it. The energy always wants to move up from the bottom to the top. That's the natural flow. And then you get the benefits and the blessings, and that's more of a divine flow back downwards that nourishes and helps us grow beyond ourselves. But when we have blocks, there's a holding, there's a tightening. It's not able to clear. And we say it, I'm not able to get past this. I'm stuck. Right? And if someone wants to evolve, it's about opening that clog. You have a sink that needs to flow. There's a clog. For it to flow, there needs to have a certain movement of water in order for it to start clearing. So if it's completely clogged, which it never can, there's always a movement of energy going up. Always, always. That's life. That has to happen. But we need to open that tap further so it could reduce the block. So what's the Roto-Rooter? What's the liquid we put in? That's our practice. That's our mantras. That's our prayers. That's doing light yoga. That's exercising, eating right, not being around that abusive situation that keeps locking us in there if we can prevent it. So there's things we do that could lessen the flow through prayer, through our practice, working with one's altar. Everything I've sort of been teaching helps us in a safe way to work through and clear, so we gradually are able to grow in our spiritual path. Our destination is to have a clear flow and being able to connect with the Wi-Fi of God, that crown that exists, that divine crown above our heads. But it's not necessarily above. It exists in our body as well. So we don't necessarily even need to think about movements up the spine, because we could just relax in our prayer and naturally we feel clearer without any needing to focus on the energy channels. Do you see the two ways that's coming about here? And I think the tree of life kind of goes more of let's focus on God and our prayers, and the rest will take care of itself. And that's extremely valid. But also, one could come about, there's certain things I can do on my end to help from both directions. Divinity, spiritual, but also practical things I can do on my end. And I've always worked with both. You're ill, you could pray and do the names of God to promote health and healing. But I tell everyone, don't over-rely on that. If there's medicine, take the medicine as well. You do both. The physical, what you can do, more exercise, things, healthier eating, whatever, taking your medicine, as well as the prayers. You see? So, if one has a block, let's address it from both points of view. Spiritual and practical things that we can do. I do not believe in spiritual passivity. Things don't magically happen to this world without you doing things to help it come about. If you want to become a lawyer, you just don't pray to God, help me become a lawyer. You have to go to school. You got to study. Now you can pray, God, help me get into a good school. God, help me do well. God, help me understand this. God, guide my path. Do you see? Both ways. Same comes with spiritual progression. Pray, but you see, the act of prayer, that's us deciding to do something. Going before our altar and taking that time aside, that's an action that we do practically. Deciding to do some yoga to help the energetic flows of the pathways of our body, which is what you're doing in yoga, mind you. People do it for exercise. But if you have a yoga that goes slowly and you focus and take time at home to even stretch and breathe in your body, you realize you're lightening the muscle tenseness, which straightens the nerves, allows energy to move slower, which is improving the flow of energy in your body, which is causing the energy to flow better, which allows you to transcend blocks in an easier way. People having an aha moment. So even if you're not understanding what you're doing, these practices actually are working in more subtle levels of the body. Same with in sport. You swim, you're moving that body. You're moving the flow of blood and oxygen through your body, which is causing more nerve impulses to flow through, because the heart's more active, right? Which clears blockages in the heart. With all that movement, blocks in areas where energy was stagnant move. That's why we feel calmer after we swim. It also causes serotonin in our brains, which helps heal our bodies and our nerves. Do you see how it's a whole kit and caboodle here? Which is why I've been encouraging people to exercise. How you eat. If you don't eat healthy, that causes problems in the organs. If there's a problem in an organ, that density, where you don't feel well, where there's density and hurt, energy pools there. It brings you down. You feel depressed. You don't feel, quote unquote, like yourself. That's because energy isn't flowing. And I imagine the serotonin levels probably dip. Do you see how it all kind of works with each other? So if one has a block, that means there's energy that's kind of pooling, kind of more in one area, and it causes a pressure and a density. Heart pain from a breakup. Emotional pain is based more in the heart. Oh, that hurt my heart. Oh, my heart feels so heavy. See, we're literally talking about energetic areas in the body without realizing that we are. Oh, that was so heavy. Oh, God, I dread. Each time I'm in front of this person, my heart, my stomach just tightens. I just get so tight down below. Well, isn't the stomach closer to the lower chakras? Makes sense? Oh, I'm getting these thoughts. This is a sign of spiritual attainment, by the way. They're so different. They're more enlightened. They're more... I see more wisdom, but I feel a little pressure in between my eyes or on my top of my head, like energy kind of wants to break through. Hats off there. But you go slowly so you don't blow it through. It's slow ascent. Slow movement and clearing of things, of centers, of areas of movement of energy that may have never flowed in that way. It's a gradual process of the energy flowing better and better gradually through the body. Does that make sense? Not wanting to do pressure positions, taking drugs and other things to blow it through the top, that can cause mania. That can cause, in a very extreme case, insanity. I've heard of stories, never seen it myself, but I have seen the manic aspect. I've blown through things a couple times and I've not been able to sleep for 4 or 5 days. My thoughts spinning. But I was able to pray at a high level because I was at that level. So I didn't encounter the paranoia, but my thinking certainly wasn't normal. I had to ask the help from my teachers on how to bring me back down. And because I encountered it, I can give people some of the advice that I myself did and my teachers counseled me to have. But it's not in a controlled manner. People feel they need to rush, and maybe there is points that people feel they need to really get through this. So I'm going to give some advice. But always remember, there's medicine involved. There are professionals that can help you go through it if it feels like it's too much. You don't have to go it alone. or only in a spiritual, religious, or spiritually technology manner. You have to use your wisdom and go and be safe. So blocks. We all have blocks. We all do. If we had no block and had a pure flow, we would literally be an Emmanuel manifestation and a manifestation of God amongst us, because we are completely united with the divine. What we could call a living saint or prophet. Though a lot of prophets had very human qualities as well. But they were seen as being beyond and very, very highly connected with the divine. That is a flow. Less human blocks, less stuckness, and a flow to the divine crown, and the transmission from that to them. Does that make sense? So you don't have to think about chakras or channels. These just naturally occur without having to focus of the process of that. So that's more of focusing on the spiritual through your prayer. More of a, I believe, more traditional Kabbalah level, but I'm only speaking about this in general terms. I'm not ready to teach about this at all on that level. So by using our prayer and our shrine and the names of God, we are focusing on bringing about the divine balance and aspects in ourselves of the virtues of compassion and of love, skillful action in our planet, being able to connect with God in ever different ways. All those spheres, shinots, that I spoke about a couple weeks ago. Coming through being in a divine alignment without having to consider the energetic process that we go through. It's more the whole of our body and the transcendence through prayer. And they also had certain skillful things that they did and processes and techniques, which I'm not going into. I'm speaking generally here. Okay? These were topics I'm not intended to go into, but if people have issues, then I wish to help. So, sort of generally, we're going to focus now on that spiritual aspect. So, 4 blocks. It's normal. Having a problem connecting with God is a block. It's a block. Being at a certain level in your spiritual path as to some other different state, that's a block. It's where we are. It's naturally where we are. It's just fine. There's no problem with it. I work on levels. I have blocks. I'm not perfected. I'm on the path. Maybe in a different location on the path than most people, but I'm still working on myself, and there are probably people out there that are way beyond me. Okay? That's fine and normal. So we do our prayers. We do the names of God. We spend time in front of our shrine. We do lift up the incense over our heads, submission of our ego, of ourselves to a higher power. Very, 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 very important. We bow to God as represented through a Tanakh or through our altars. Why? Submission of ego. God, you are the Father. I'm your Son. I wish to listen to you. I wish to obey you. I wish you to command me, guide me It's not my will, but yours. Do you see the relationship? And by doing that and asking and being open to it, we're open to the blessings and to the graces as we connect in stronger and stronger ways. But that comes with time. We normally have resistance to that, and that's okay. But we overcome these blocks progressively with time and effort in a gradual, organic way. Now, we may wish to go through it faster, so we spend more time with it. But we try not to get so pushed through that we transcend and break through too fast that the flow just blows through us. But sometimes when a block goes away, we feel it, and it's a sudden burst of energy, or for a day or two, we may be a little more spun around. And that's okay. But we still maintain that control. We're still balanced. Or if we feel, you know what, I want to stay at home and be more spiritual, we take time off from work because we feel we're not grounded enough to be in that space, nor do we wish that space to interfere with the spiritual place we're at, that deep prayer or that deep process we're going through. But it's still done with a certain level of, I feel I'm in control, but it's more of a lighter touch, but this is safe and I trust in the process. God has me and I'm not doing anything crazy or whatever. Something's working through and the energy is moving and it is sort of in a safe spectrum. Does that make sense? And to help it move, like I mentioned, eating, yoga, drinking a lot of water. I believe in natural spring water. I don't like the water out of faucets particularly, even if it's filtered, but at least filter it. Please don't drink it straight out of the tap. I find it very acidic. But I like natural spring water, and there's plenty of companies that sell that. Poland Springs I've used, Lake Arrowhead, there's different companies. And that's I find very healthy. And it has a lot of activated chi, a lot of energy in it. Subtle, that heals the body. That helps. The yoga, doing stretching, providing more flexibility with your body. Epsom salt baths, which are hot, in a hot bath, lessens the blocks in the body, loosens the muscles. And Epsom salt takes blocks out of the body, but salt is also a conduit of energy. And so the energy that's taken from our body kind of goes through the bath, and it's very relaxing and it helps things get unstuck. Also helps with our stretches afterwards, but you have to be careful. You stretch too much. You do intense stretches, especially involving the spine, you can physically suddenly unlock too much energy. So an orange, a yellow to a red flag there. But then easy stretches and moving through and not doing anything too extreme. And when you are, you know you are. Be mindful. Is helpful in moderation and in appropriate ways. There's so many different levels of yoga. People work up to them. It's a path. Don't just go jumping at the last level and really hurt yourself. That can cause a sudden movement and shift of energy that's out of control. Because we're working with a physical process here. Having tension or vertebrae in the spine that's out of alignment blocks energy. But one needs to work with it gradually with the massage therapist and slowly working, because the more you unwind it, the more the energy flows. Do you see? And by working with it, and when I mean slowly, it doesn't have to be over years. It could be over weeks or couple days for one block. But you feel that you're not trying to go for that sudden shift, and you know when you're doing it. Sometimes when you meditate and you pray, you do feel you need to stretch, and you should, and you do feel the vertebrae move as the tension leaves you. But it's in a safe, progressive way. Yes? So there's also the names of God that can help cause energy to move. El Shaddai is, one of the names of God, is very much the energy aspect of God in a certain way. It's a very storm energy. It's very much the power of God, and that has a certain charge to it, at least for me. And saying that adds a little charge to our body, which can help energy move through. But if energy is already moving too fast, do not use that, because you will just make the energy go faster, more intense. It's not that it's all going to blow through faster and you'll get past this. You'll just increase the flow and cause more problems. When energy moves too fast, you need to slow it down to something more balanced. But if you're stuck, it helps it move. So there's certain names I wish to share. Different names for different people at different times. So when I give you qualities of these names, this is how it feels for me. That name, same name, may not feel right for you. A different name may have those qualities, or you may never find a name or have a name that has those particular qualities. So we're able to say names, several names at a time. This is more resembling mantra techniques of other traditions. So let me take a pause right here. We do not dabble in mantras of other traditions. Those are other energies. They do other things, and they align you with something other than Yahweh. People may have learned them of other traditions. So you've learned how to bench, you've gotten strong, you have the knowledge on how to use mantras, but you use the mantras of this tradition, and those are the 72 names of God. And you do not ever go anywhere else, period. You take refuge in God. They're all here. All those things you might have found somewhere else in different forms, but not quite as pure as one might think, is found here. So there's no need to go anywhere else. This is where you plant your flag. This is your refuge. The greater your refuge, the greater your connection to the Wi-Fi, the greater the flow of the blessing. Make sense? So anything else is sort of put in a box in a room in your mind, and you close the door, you close the key, and you don't open it anymore. But that doesn't mean that you don't have those skills that you could apply to Yahweh, or El Shaddai, or Elohim, or Emmanuel, whatever name you choose to use. Right? So we're able to move several names together to create a certain vibration that really kind of helps things move along in a different way if you just use one of the names. I touched about this a little bit before, I think in some of the first core teachings, but now I am really hitting it home. So I have a list. I went through them. These are ones that came to me. There is no official list. I don't know if other people particularly do this, but I have found it to be very helpful. Of late, I just used a singular name. But there was someone in trouble, and I channeled a name, and it helped. So I feel this will help people, and help people when they're beginning out in front of their altar. Sometimes it's hard to connect with a single name, but combining names causes a certain movement of energy. Each name has a certain frequency, which could be different for different people, but by combining several different names, it actually moves energy because you're bringing into yourself several different frequencies. It's like moving it around or hitting different points, which cause a shift. One name can move everything, but sometimes, especially at the beginning, saying several names really opens a conduit that's stronger. So if you're running into troubles or you have blocks, sometimes saying several names quickly brings peace and calm and relieves the block or relieves the flow of energy. It may work more for blocks, more for too much of a flow of energy, or it may work for both. And that's something that you have to see for yourself. These are merely suggestions. So, now for some people who don't like using certain names, you work with the names you feel comfortable. As I say all these names in a very sacred, devout way, I feel comfortable using all the names, but I say it out of extreme respect and reverence. And if people don't feel comfortable saying certain names out loud, then say it within yourself. Often when I say these names, I don't say them out loud, but sometimes I do say them out loud. So you need to do what works with your spirituality, with your religion, and what you think is right and appropriate to show reverence to God. Okay? So I will say the names as I've written and as I work with them, and I will list certain qualities that I feel for me that combination has. And you will get an impression on how to put them together. But then you could put it in your order. One name that I say in the middle, you might want to put it first, or use another name there. So this is just a sort of framework on how you can go about exploring these possibilities. But if you're having a problem now, see if one of the names that I'm suggesting has that effect on you. And if it really works and it's good, then focus on that name and developing those energies, because that's what's working now. And that's how you build your strength and your knowledge. And then when you're better, you work on some other names and see what those qualities are. And then you add them to your list. And therefore, when you need a certain quality, you've already developed it and you know which name to use. And you're not sort of fumbling, trying to, oh my God, I got to find the one that works for this, and nothing's quite sticking. Or it's the moment that something really will stick because you're open to it and you really need it. And that's when you discover the names that work. Sometimes under adversity is when you really, really connect and really find things. So, Yahweh, El Shaddai, Elohim. You see, I really don't play around. So, for me, Yahweh, El Shaddai, Elohim, it's very healing. It helps calm energies or imbalances in the body, it makes me feel very whole, very connected, in the sense that any imbalances sort of moderate themselves, become even. Does that make sense? So the Yahweh for me feels very whole. It's one of the main names I use. Very aligned with God. El Shaddai is very clearing and energetic, so it kind of clears the imbalances. And Elohim is very grounding. And you see the combination of which really creates a wholeness, a clearing, and then a grounding. There's also, beyond these energetic aspects of God, there's the tones of it. Yahweh, El Shaddai, Elohim. Do you see how the Elohim, my voice goes deeper and it's more grounded? As it goes deeper, it's the lower frequencies, and that works more with the lower chakras, which is very grounding and clearing. So we're working with tones and frequencies. That's why it's sometimes important to say out loud, because you hear it and it really vibrates through your lungs and your body and through the room, and has that effect outside as well as within. Or you could say it within, and often the most powerful ones are said within because it really makes them even more powerful. But it could be part of both. So if people want to write it down, Yahweh, El Shaddai, Elohim. All these names are spelled on the PDF that's on my website at www.wisdomoftheshalom. There is a part on the names of God, and at the bottom there's a PDF that you could download, as well as you could see it on the screen, that has all these names spelled out. So El Shaddai is E-L, capital S-H-A-D-D-A-I, and Elohim is E-L-O-H-I-M. Next one, because I want to get through this. Abba El Shaddai. That really surmounts obstacles. It's very powerful, very strong. So if you have a block and you're in a painful place, saying Abba El Shaddai, that will help clear it, so your mind could unhook from the stuckness of those emotions that you're experiencing, or that flashback, or the heaviness. It helps clear that block. Does that make sense? Abba El Shaddai is not something I would necessarily say if I'm more manicky. But then it might help people who might be stuck in a place of paranoia. Yahweh El Shaddai. That seems to be more of a prayer for help, a prayer to connect. If you feel fear or trepidation or need assistance, I find that one's very helpful. Yahweh El Shaddai. Yahweh Shalom. Shalom means peace. It's very releasing, very whole, very calming. So you could work with different names. So you could say Hashem Shalom. You see, that shouldn't cause problems with people who more work with Hashem. Or Adonai Shalom. Or Adonai El Shaddai. Yahweh. Or Adonai El Shaddai Elohim. Do you see? Or if you work with Emmanuel, Emmanuel Shalom. Emmanuel El Shaddai. Right? The God amongst us aspect of God. El Shaddai. Does that make sense? Or it could be El Shaddai Abba. El Shaddai Yahweh. Shalom Yahweh. Do you see, the order can be moved around and shifted. So the order I'm giving you is an order that has certain qualities that have worked for me. Here's one that's great for healing. Yahweh Rapha El Shaddai. Rapha means that healeth. Translating exactly, Yahweh Rapha El Shaddai means the Lord, Yahweh, that healeth, Rapha, that heals, El Shaddai means Almighty God. So, the Lord that healeth, Almighty God, Yahweh Rapha El Shaddai. It's almost like an order. It's a very powerful name that orders the energy to leave. It's very direct. It directs that energy to disappear, to be removed. Do you see? These are mantras of God. And it doesn't need to be said in an intense way. Or if something's coming on strong and sharp, Yahweh Raphael Shaddai. Boom. I didn't even quite say it in the right way with the right connection of energy, but it could be said in a very intense way. It sort of came out medium level when I said it just there. Because I don't care to blow energy through people when I'm speaking, especially something so strong. Because it has to feel right for you. Elohim Eloheinu means Elohim, our God. It's very heart-based. It heals, makes you feel whole. It heals physical, energetic breaks. Elohim Elinehu. Ooh, that might work very well for people who are more manicky, that the energy has blown through too fast. Elohim Shomri. This is one of the traditional names of God. Elohim, my protector. It kind of charges you in the sense that it provides sort of a shield. You feel God, you're calling on God to protect you and to help you. So these are some suggestions. Shomri is Shomri. Eloheinu is Eloheinu. By the way, all these names are fully capitalized. Rapha, mean healing, is Rapha. All the other names should be on the PDF. So these are prayers we can do and bring into our practice when we feel blocks. Or some of them will help if we feel we're completely too much of a flow and it's become too intense. So we could bring in this divine aspect to bring in the balance and the flow. This is fully spiritual, but do you see the energy that it brings into our body and into our minds also affects our physical aspect. And we don't need to particularly know what's going on. We don't need to know anything about chakras or the spine or kundalini or any of that. Do you understand? It's the whole body. When we feel an aspect of God, we could feel it in our whole body. We don't necessarily need to feel that it's above us. And as we develop, it becomes our whole body. But sometimes we can feel it go up too. That just means we're connected to a different aspect of our body. So it helps to understand, but we don't need to necessarily go there. I think that's what the more traditional Kabbalistic tree of life is focused on. See, now I'm just moving into teachings that I don't feel I want to give yet. But as I speak to you, this is sort of, I think, kind of what it's moving towards. And then if you feel it go up, you feel stuff, you feel that mania, the understanding that it's too much energy in your mind, that helps you address the problem. Because it makes you realize there's tools that you can do. You're understanding that it's a flow that's a little bit too intense. So how do you lessen that flow? It provides an understanding that you can work from. And then you go to the names of God that you find calming, which calms the energy that makes you feel sleepy. that makes you feel, I feel more relaxed. Oh, the flow is lessening. Then that's the name you focus on. And all you need is one. If it's working, especially if you're new to them, stick with it. Develop that ability with that name. Deepen with it. And then you find faith in it through experience because it worked for you. And then you grow in greater faith in God because you've called upon his names, and now you're seeing the power of the names of God and the power of arranging them in certain ways to get certain medicinal energetic aspects from them. Or you could say in a more religious way, to get certain blessings and graces from his name. Do you see the multiple levels here? And ultimately, you're calling on God. Yahweh, El Shaddai, Elohim, you are calling on three different aspects of the divinity. So it's literally a prayer. Do you see the levels here? Okay. Back to my little notes here. Let me check to see if there's anything more I want to deal about the blockage aspect. But if you see, the names can work for everything. Anger issues, problems of not knowing what to do next. You're in a problem. What should I do? And your mind is so scared and you're so stuck. You need that name to kind of break through into some clarity. Using several of names together of God, either it comes up spontaneously at the moment and it ends up being correct, or it's one that you've practiced on and you know that's the one you should use for this situation. You sort of have it in your toolkit and you develop it over time. And you use the right name for the situation that's presenting itself. And with experiencing and practicing it when you don't have any situations, you know the qualities. Or if you have a situation, sometimes that's the best time to discover a particular name for that situation because you know it works for it. But it might also work for different situations. So it's never too late. You're not alone when you're going through it. You have to call upon God, and there's many different ways. Or just a simple prayer, God, help me with this. You're calling in refuge. You're reaching out and asking. And then you could also have the trust that God has got this. But it's never like, unless you have the experience and the confidence and the attainment and knowing of a capital K that God's really got this and there's nothing you need to do, great. Because that's the reality and you are able to discern that's really where it is. But if you are newer and you're uncertain and you don't have that level of clarity and wisdom to know of a capital K, then sometimes you need to reach out to help. You need to reach for medicine. You need to think what I need to do. Or intuitively, you're like, oh, I should take a bath. Or, you know what, I should maybe do this. And that could also come from the wisdom of God saying, I've got you, but do these things too. So do you see, it's really I don't go either or. Just doing these prayers is you physically doing something because you're mentally creating and deciding to put out these frequencies. So it's never fully spiritual. It's always physical, but there's always a little more we can do as well. We need to be holistic and comprehensive in it. Otherwise, we could get out of balance because we're over-reliant. Most of this planet leaves God alone and it's all physical, it's all on you. And boy, if you don't know how to do it, then you're kind of all alone in a way. especially if you don't believe in modern medicine and medication and doctors. Then you're really on your own. Or they're not available. So let me take a quick look. I think I have touched on everything on blockages. Yeah, so we don't push through on the blocks too fast. They need to sort of work their way through, but you could use techniques that help move it along, help the flow, help it move along. But I wouldn't push hard, and then you'll have the opposite, fast flow, and it can cause damage, energetic damage, nervous damage. So self-care is important. The importance of not pushing through and rushing the process, taking the time to do it safely. So Epsom salt baths and a hot bath helps working through blockages like I have mentioned. We have to honor the movement of our path of our energy. So if we go too fast, it could lead to unbalanced thinking, unbalanced emotions that are out of control, which are symptoms of different levels of mania. Some work through itself in a couple hours, and some could last for days and weeks and require hospitalization and medication. And if you're prone to mania, I would say some of these things maybe not do, or go very extra slowly. And if you feel the first symptoms and you have the medication, then take the medication. Call your doctor if you need to. If you've never experienced it, but you feel you have it and it's like, oh my God, I don't know what to do, you call your doctor. That's what they're there for. You use your sanity and your intelligence to be safe. There's no such thing as quote unquote being hardcore here. Hardcore here is crazy. Because this is a process and you don't want it to get manically blown out with too much energy, too fast, too hard, uncontrolled. At the same time, you do not want to be living in the same blocks for your whole life and not progressing. But just by praying and saying the names of God, occasionally taking a bath, stretching, doing all the healthy things that everybody in normal society suggests that people should do, meditating, whatever, will naturally help the flow to go. Especially if you have your intent when you say the names of God, God, please help me move through this abuse energy. I want to move beyond it. I'm really stuck here. Help me. Well, then your intent is focused on that. And that intent becomes a prayer. And since your energy is focused on those particular aspects, and your prayers are, then that energy is really focused there on lessening it. Does that make sense? All right. So, the other side. Too much flow. What to do? First thing, it's fixable, so just relax. Being worried, being agitated, running around is not helpful. Try to lie down and relax. Tranquil music. Nothing abrasive. If you have a backyard and if you feel safe going there and lying under a tree or lying on the ground of your house or apartment, especially if it's wood, but even if it's carpet, you just want to ground and allow that energy to sort of leave. if you're taking what I call accelerants, alcohol or recreational drugs, stop immediately. That will cause energy to move faster. It will lead to states of paranoia and more manic. You'll be spinning yourself faster. So stop it. Eating heavier meals will put more energy in your stomach, make you feel heavier. That will ground you. Pasta, meats, heavy foods, no alcohol. Things that make your body feel better, like Gatorade or water. But if you're spun out, you probably don't want to drive. Ask a friend to bring the food, deliver it in. Pasta. Being heavier. Things to ground. Finding a name of God that calms you, that makes you feel more peaceful. If you have medication, you take it. Magnesium baths. Magnesium helps calm the body. It lowers the feeling of raciness or feeling of manic. You don't want it in a hot bath because heat opens energy channels and will just make you more racing. Like I also that means even if you're not taking a bath, you don't take hot showers when you're going through this. If anything, you want it lukewarm to cold for a shower. That will, but not too cold. You just want it very lukewarm and tepid, or a tad cold, to slow down the energy. Too cold could actually make energy very intense and spurt it out. So it's another thing, you don't want to do that either. So for the magnesium baths, you want it to be lukewarm. Just warm enough that you're comfortable, allows the magnesium into your body because your pores open, but not hot that will cause your muscles to over open and relax and flow the energy more. So when you have more of a manic, you do not take salt baths. You do not take Epsom baths. You buy magnesium baths. It's available on Amazon and probably some stores. Okay? Magnesium pills does not so much help with this. It's the bath. So if everything's racing, I wouldn't do yoga. Gentle massage on places that feel hurt. Trying to be in an aligned position, but calm. But you're not trying to do anything to promote energies to move more because it's already moving too much. And if you need it, you seek the help of a professional. There are medications, little pills that help calm it down. Right? But these are the practical things. You do not listen to hard music when you're manic. You calm down. Lavender, smells, incense. You pray to God. You lie on the floor in front of your shrine. You ask God, please help me with this. And know you'll fundamentally be okay. And the energy will subside. But if you've really blown it through, it could take a little while. But if you really blown it through and you are manic, then you need to get help right away and bring it down. This is why I don't teach certain yogas. This is why I don't teach certain practices. Everything needs to be done in balance. We need to progress along the path, so we need to let go of our blocks, intellectual, spiritual, physical, energetic, right? We need to work through them. At the same time, we don't blow through our blocks, that we have an uncontrolled release of the energy that's been blocked. When you want to release energy behind a dam, you open the floodgates and you let it flow in a controlled manner. You don't blow up holes in the dam. Does that make sense? I think that's a really good analogy. I really like that one. And that's what I'm trying to counsel here. It's all in balance. And it's okay. Look, if you've done it and it goes through, then you've learned. And then you learn how to work with it. We've, many of us have been there. This happens. But gauge, is this workable? Will these steps I have given help in this? Will it pass if you're using recreational drugs once I'm less high? Right? And then you sleep more for a day or two. You re-ground yourself. Do you have a roommate when you're paranoid? I'm feeling really paranoid. Can you sit with me for a couple hours? Can you talk with me and calm me down? Is there a friend you can call? So I mention this because there are people going through overly blocked and stuck and trying to push through. So how do you do that safely? And there's others that have had a real rush of energy and they don't know kind of how to work through it. So in a way, I'm glad I'm giving these teachings. I've been very hesitant to, but I think it's important to have that knowledge and understanding as to why I say go slow, but you could also go moderate. So you have that progression, but being mindful of going too much. Like there's a lot of people who do hot yoga, right? A lot of people have had real blowouts because everything's too soft and they're using yogic positions and they haven't been doing practice and working through their spiritual progress up until then. People have dislocated spines, physically done real physical harm, but also really blown their energy through. So it's about being measured, not being aggressive, and being smart. So I hope this has helped people. I'm going to go quickly through. So if you feel a little less grounded, but not so manic-y, but things are working through and it feels a little intense, but you can do it safely, spending time in nature. By trees, water, open spaces, bring a little blanket, a little pad so you could lie down there under a tree and take a nap. It's helpful when one goes through intense things, intense emotions. And you do that if you feel safe. Or ask a friend to go with you. Say, I'm going through a lot. Can you just be there? I kind of need to be by myself, but I feel better. There's a friend that you're there with me. And it helps that energy kind of work through. And you feel held and you feel loved. There's teas, chamomile or lavender tea, very calming. There's sleepy time tea, if you're in America, that's great. That actually calms the nerves and makes you sleepy. That's really great. Essential oils, incense. Nothing too sharp, very calming, avoiding stimulants. Yeah, so if you're more manic-y, no caffeine, please. No tea, unless it's non-caffeinated. No green tea, no nothing like that. Only herbal teas. And no coffee. All these are sort of stimulants. No power, pre-workout drinks. None of that stuff. Because they could exacerbate that energy and that tension, that flow. And grounding foods, root vegetables, whole grains, proteins. Look, just go to pasta and meats. Get heavy. So I hope that helps everyone. I hope this provides some guidance as people are working through things, as people are focused right now to do certain things. I hope this provides an understanding and the context and how to go about it safely. And so that's my hope. I've touched onto certain concepts that I haven't really gone into details. That's just to kind of provide an understanding of where things fit where. But I may change my opinions on certain schools of thought or certain things and how they mix together. But I hope it helps just create a general context on how to understand the path, how to go through it, what are the skillful tools available to us, and what to go about doing in certain situations. And I pray that God Almighty blesses us all, guides us safely, and helps lead us to where He would like us to be. Children of God, and manifesting appropriately on this planet. May it be so. Shalom and Amen. Thank you for joining me, and I wish you a wonderful day. Bye-bye.